Yeah, welcome to paper note taking and GPA average with Max and Tim.
Yeah.
No, it's beers with Max. It's beers with Max and Tim. No beers, I think, because well, I still have a broken foot and I'm waiting for that to heal. But I just discovered that Tim and I are kindred spirits on the actual note taking in paper side, and I got to tell you, Tim. I too rarely will oftentimes never look at my notes, but there was a lot of research that's been done that I can't quote specifically that says when you write things, hand write things, you it's more likely that you commit them to memory. So
Right. For me, writing stuff down helps me pay attention
yeah,
because
and
my
so
my my ADHD will allow my brain to go off, in an uncontrolled direction without supervision, and the pen and paper are it's a leash of sorts.
I got incredible grades in school,
Hmm.
considering that I never did homework or read any of them of the books.
Oh, so I got
Uh,
I got incredible test scores. Like I did really well on the SATs and that sort of stuff, and you know, it, but my my powers as a student were stymied by the fact that um, I didn't I didn't know I
you can
had
say it.
ADHD.
There's
I
no
didn't know I
judgment
had
here.
ADHD, so my brain was off leash all the time. So I couldn't pay attention to anything.
Yeah. I made a deal with my teachers in high school that if I got an A on the test, I didn't have to do the homework. So
Yeah,
that
that's
was the
fair.
end of homework. And I would always get great grades with anything because class participation, like, hey, it's the one time participation trophies. I was a big fan
Yeah.
because class participation, I went to a college where that was really important. And I was the only person that was paying attention in class because I actually got some sleep instead of doing 6 hours of the homework that they wanted you to do. And so I was taking notes, I was asking questions, I'd sit at the front and I'd get great grades. I never even had the book. I'd show up early and interview the smart kids 15 minutes before class. The
Uh-huh.
smartest kids in the class that had done all the homework, they were sitting there. I'd do a little interview with them and I'd ask the first three questions every day and they never called on me again. That was it.
Yeah. So the only class where I was the only college class where I was truly a stellar student was, and this will be a shock to nobody that knows me really well, is satire.
uh at what at what point does satire become a class? Like where did
I was an English major, so it was a literature class.
okay, English made okay, that
Yeah.
makes sense. I was like,
And
I
and
went to business school and I'm surprised satire wasn't an option.
well, let's circle back on that. We'll put a pin in it. And take it offline. That is satire right there. Like that's it.
And I assume you got a good grade because you continue to wield the skill set.
Yeah, yeah. As a matter of fact, I do remember some like really smart kid. One of the kids who did all the homework didn't understand something, and I just remember the professor, this great guy at Notre Dame called Tom Gemelli, just said, "For God's sakes, just ask Kilroy." Yeah,
Uh,
that
I
was
got
that
an
was like
A.
my shining moment of academic success in college.
My favorite day was in a strategy, and then we'll talk about agencies, I think. But my favorite day in college, it was an Indian professor, and we were doing strategy, and he was the professor that like he would run his company. I think he
Yeah,
had like a portfolio of companies, and then he'd show up and teach the class. So like he
yeah.
didn't give a shit. Like
Mhm.
he was just a real person that was out there doing it, and it was the midterm, and the midterm was like write a strategy. Here are the two options, and I picked neither of the options. And I was like, okay, we'll see what happens. And it was the first, like, everyone was mortified because he read people's grades aloud in the front of the class.
Ooh.
And so he would go, Marissa, you were very disappointing. I gave you a D. I thought you'd get an A. This was no creativity. This was
Ugh.
terrible.
Well, like first of all, like that's like your dad saying stuff like I'm really disappointed in you.
Yeah, it was crazy. But he pointed at me and he said, Max, I gave you a B. It's one of the best grades in the class, and you didn't even choose one of the answers. He's like, this is great. This is what you need to do in the real world.
Yeah,
Like, the answers aren't going to be given to you. So anyway, that was a
by the
lifetime
way,
of
just go.
commitment to.
Yeah, just going back to my English major roots, like this is very like Emerson, Walt Whitman, Robert Frost kind of stuff. Civil disobedience, being
No.
true to your own self and taking the road less traveled. So,
Well,
clearly,
in business, here's the transition. Here's the magic transition I was waiting for.
okay.
Sometimes in business, uh, what the client wants to hear isn't the right answer.
Why did you qualify that with sometimes?
Because I haven't had enough coffee.
Yeah, because
I would prefer to remain optimistic that
okay,
sometimes
all
the
right,
client can be
fair
right.
enough, fair enough. Yeah,
And I have been surprised. Like, I tell everybody, what I try to teach them to do is facilitate a workshop where the client feels like they came up with the answer.
yeah, yep,
But again, the reason they're paying you is because you're the expert. So it's very ironic that you have to do that, but you have to do that, um, to
yes.
make them feel like it was their answer. But I always tell people, um, be open to the idea that the client will come up with a better idea.
Oh, yeah, because they have way more context.
But we're consistently disappointed, is what I think, uh, the reality is. I think it happened to me once, though. I think a client had a good idea one time.
All right, so actually, let's come back to this. You choosing the road less traveled, um, uh, in college because this is a major problem that I see both in clients and agencies. Is that we are really focused on doing the expected thing. We narrow our options, and part of that's because when you're in school, the whole point of school is to give the teacher what they want. Like they set out the expectations, and you match them. You get a good grade, you get a gold star. Everybody's happy. Your parents love you more. You get to graduate. Summa cum laude maximus, whatever.
Yeah. And now you've got a whole society of people that measure their self-worth based on giving other people what they want. Good.
Exactly.
We'll
Right.
start there.
Yeah. Right. And especially in agencies, that is often that often leads to
Complacency.
average. Yeah, like leads to meh. It's just like a long time ago when I used to do SEO stuff, people would say, "Well, we just want to do best practices." And I was thinking, like, no, you don't want to do just best practices because best practices is completely average.
Yeah.
You want to do something extraordinary, and
Yeah.
I think that we have sadly both clients
And
and agencies put ourselves in a position where extraordinary is not on the table for a lot of folks.
yeah. Well, let me ask you this. Whoever got ahead in life because they delivered on scope?
Uh, I don't know. I don't think it worked out super well for the pyramid guys. Probably not for the Roman aqueduct guys.
Well, but
Maybe
that's
the
the.
maybe the guy who made the guillotine. I'm not sure. Maybe he got ahead. But
Oh, satire
yeah, good,
101.
huh?
Yeah.
Yeah,
First lesson.
yeah, yep.
Professor Tim. Tell him what he's won. But that's the yeah, I think it's all making sense now. I mean, you got the look, we win deals as an agency because we challenge the client's thinking, and we win good deals by challenging the
Mm-hmm.
client's thinking. This isn't we're not in RFP land. Let's just forget
Yes,
about that for a second.
absolutely. Yes.
But we win a client's respect. We are seen as a strategic partner. We may even get to influence how they make decisions in a perfect world, but we do that by challenging their we do that by challenging their assumptions and giving
Yes.
and revealing the what they didn't know they didn't know.
Right.
And so why then is the service team so solely focused on delivering on scope? Where's the challenge in that? Where's the answer number three? You know, and that's why I think we lose clients. That's why we don't upsell, is because everyone just goes, oh, this is just like high school or just like college, where the
On
teacher is my boss or the teacher is the client, and this little piece of paper that says do these three things every week. That's what success means.
Yes, 100%. I could not agree more with you. I mean, and I think it's like that's not really an indictment of anyone, because you know most people on the delivery staff, like they just want to live their lives, and it's easiest to do the thing that is prescribed. Most people on the client side are just trying to live their lives, and the easiest thing is not to tell your boss about a surprise. And
Yeah.
so, like, that's kind of a basic human thing, but I think that there's a piece that is the piece that is missing is the fact that specifically in marketing and advertising, the whole freaking point is to stand out and to create, some sort of vibe that resonates with somebody, right? And you cannot create that resonance by making the same noise everyone else does.
Yeah, yeah. It's not like it's not like safety engineering, where you're
Exactly.
like we
Exactly.
need to innovate the way we test, these cars hitting
Right.
walls.
You know,
Yeah,
one thing I tell my clients all the time is SOPs do not create success.
yeah,
They
right. Then no one got ahead by
right,
following
like
scope. Now
all they do is
you need to deliver on scope. Don't get me wrong.
yeah, yeah,
You need to do the bare minimum, is what we're saying.
yeah,
You need to do the
yeah,
bare
yeah.
minimum.
Right. Yeah. I mean, SOPs prevent failure. They don't create
Yeah.
success.
And also for those of you listening to this going, well, if we over deliver, then we're not making any money. I'm not talking about giving away additional services for free.
Right.
I'm
Or
talking about
we're
the
having
thinking.
5 meetings a week instead of one.
I'm talking about the thinking. I'm talking about deeper questions. I'm talking about conversations outside the scope. You're there anyway. Just do better thinking, better questions. Talk to different people that actually hold budgets and care about the business. That was a depressing thing that I learned, is that most people in a business don't care about the business.
That's very true. And then if you happen to be working with an owner operated business, they care too much and can't let go. So there's a real dichotomy. Like for the most like uh, a long time ago, I had this great client back when I was running an agency. I had this great client. They're a Canadian consumer electronics retailer, and I was asking the VP of e-commerce, basically, what he needed in order to be successful. Like, what did I need to deliver to him so that he felt satisfied? And he said, there's two things. One, I want to make sure I get my full bonus. Like, because that's
Oh,
like
that's very cool.
25% of my income every year. So I'm going to do everything I can to get that. And number two is I don't want to give the CMO any reason to think that I am not killing it. And I was like, okay. So,
I could work with that.
right. But if you notice, like, none of that had to do with the business, right? So he was thinking about outcomes that made him happy.
Yeah.
right? And so the thing that we rarely do as agencies is actually think about the outcomes that make people happy. We talk about stupid crap like return on ad spend from platforms, or
Yeah.
click rates through email, or whatever. We talk about stuff that is measurable but unimportant.
Yeah. Well, so question number one, after listening to this, you go to your point of contact and you say, "Hey, what's your bonus based on? How do you
Yeah,
get your bonus next year?"
yeah. I mean, that's not I mean, believe it or not, like that is not a terrible question to ask.
That's a
You know,
fantastic question to ask.
yeah, like how do you get compensated? And some because and some people get compensated like there's not a big bonus structure, whatever. So like you can, I mean, but you have to understand what they are working with, because you need to understand the things that actually matter. Because when it comes right down to it, whatever results that your triple whale or shows, that could be wholly irrelevant to the person on the other side of the Zoom call.
Yeah. Okay. So
And it
here
likely is, by the way.
we're doing, this is good. This is good. We're so we have to identify drama causers. We got to say, hey, what causes drama in your world?
Yep.
We got to say, what gets you a pat on the back?
Yep.
Like, well, last time you got a pat on the back, who gave you the pat? What was it for? And then how are you? How are you compensated? What's your? Do you have a bonus structure? Do you have an incentive structure?
Yeah. So here, a million years ago, way back before the internet was even a thing, I used to run a retail store called the Sharper Image.
I know that place.
Yeah. It was like it was I don't know. It was like shiny object central, right? It
Yeah,
was just like a bunch of crazy stuff, and
yeah, like a vacuum cleaner that doubles as like a massage chair. Like it'd be a sharper
yeah,
image.
exactly. And a suit of armor that had a speaker in it or whatever,
Yeah,
like
it's like the
crazy,
land
crazy.
the land version of In-Flight magazine.
As a matter of fact, that's where the Sharper Image started, by putting ads in in-flight magazines. But I had a very wise district manager who when I became a store manager, he said to me, he's like, okay, you have to realize that on Saturday mornings, the CEO, or the president at that time, this guy named Craig Womack, he would go down to his wine cellar because he was a big wine guy. And so my district manager said, so when Craig is down in the wine cellar, you don't want to be interrupting his thoughts about Bordeaux. Like, you don't want to be in his field of vision so that he has less enjoyment on his Saturday mornings when he goes down to touch his bottles or whatever he did. You know, and I realized, like, oh, that is key, because I need to make sure that I'm staying out of his field of vision, because that allows me to do my job happily. It allows him to have his great Saturday mornings where he turns his bottles, and like it's copacetic. And so one of the things that a great agency can do is help their point of contact manage up by understanding what is important to the contact, because what's important to your contact is going to be what's important to their boss, because it is very likely that your contact was a good student in school and just wants to match expectations, wants to make their boss happy. So if you can understand what matters to your point of contact, you are likely protecting your contact from their boss thinking about them on Saturday mornings.
Okay, okay. But I see so often that the agencies have this okay, battered contact syndrome. So which is a new one for me. We're hearing it for the first time right now.
Yeah,
Battered contact syndrome is when your point of contact is so afraid of showing up at all because they also have not gone through this thought process of what would make
yeah,
Chris, what
right.
does really make him tick? What does he want to hear about? And so every time they put their head above water, they get it chopped off. And so now the answer is no, we don't want to be seen at all. we
Right,
we
right.
we want to we want to blend in with the wall behind us. And that this is why I've never been able to keep like a corporate job is because that's the opposite of what I want. Like I want to do the thing that is most disruptive, that has the biggest impact, um, and I
And
don't
it's the
have a
most
hide
fun.
button. Yeah, because that's what's fun, right? I don't do the hiding thing. I don't pick A or B.
Right.
I pick
Go-
two, one.
Yeah.
I don't.
Or
But
yeah.
there it is, battered contact syndrome.
Yeah,
If you're,
and so as an agency, like what can you do to prevent the scourge of battered contract syndrome?
confront the abuser.
Almost, almost.
What
Um,
I'm saying is they're just a wet towel. They're just putty.
right.
They're not.
But I think that there's a way to shore them up throughout the entire client acquisition process. So if you start out by challenging their assumptions, you're giving them a little bit of fortitude, right? Like challenging their assumptions, they suddenly have an external opinion that says, "Hey, what you're doing may not be exactly the right thing." So that might give them a little bit of lift. Secondly, when you ask them really challenging questions during the discovery process, like what matters? How do you measure results? What do those results mean? You know, great. You want to you want to generate more sales. Cool. So let's think about the business impacts of that. What does that really mean? What are we getting out of that? And so that you can push them to think a little more deeply, a little self-reflection, a little journaling maybe, to help them really understand why they're doing this. Now, not everybody's going to come on board with that, but I do think that every agency that has great client relationships asks their client partners to think more deeply about the reasons why they want the things that they want.
So that's the therapist approach.
Yeah, exactly.
They can be helped, which I'll probably wake up on Saturday morning and agree with you. But right now, it's Friday, and I believe that there needs to be a translator. Like I think that if you're experiencing battered contact syndrome and they're terrified and they're afraid, sure, go through all the therapy you want. But don't be surprised when leadership doesn't understand the value that you're bringing to the table. I do think, as part of you evaluating your client or the thing that you push for in a sales process, is helping them understand that you need someone on the client side that can translate what
Oh,
the agency is
100%.
doing into business outcomes. And
Yeah, yeah.
that's not the battered
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
head of
Totally. Totally.
ecom.
And I may have seen this somewhere in one of your posts, but when I was running my agency, either the account manager or I would always try to get the most senior person on the other side to have a non-results focused strategy call at least once a quarter.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
The quarterly business review. At least
well,
that's
actually,
part of
different.
what it
So
should be.
different. So informal. So obviously, quarter. By the way, I don't understand why people don't do quarterly business reviews. It just seems dumb.
Well,
But
and
no,
most
like
people that say they do it, it's really they're just looking at performance metrics, which is not a quarterly business review. So
no,
yes,
it is not.
that's like the one. Yeah, and we could all do better just by doing those. But anyway,
Right. But I think that there's this other idea of this like informal discussion with the most senior person you can find to understand what is happening in their business strategically, tactically, from a market perspective, because they have way more context about their business than you do. Like as an agency, you're looking at that.
I'm pointing at the golf course. That's what this is for. That's the informal conversation
Yeah, exactly,
with
exactly.
the executive that has the time to play golf.
Right.
That's the beauty of this whole game
Yeah, yeah.
is the
And
informal call.
right, because I actually wrote about this in my newsletter yesterday, um, where like marketing agencies, like they focus on stuff like return on ad spend, and so they're looking at their success from the most incredibly narrow perspective. Like they have 1 degree of visibility into their client business, which is return on ad spend. Well, cool, but there's 300 and or whatever. I guess there's 364 other degrees because 365 makes a circle, right? Something like that. I can't remember. I was an English major, not a math major, so
I remember
it's
that.
360. So maybe it's 359 other degrees to look at their business from. And
Delete.
yeah, we can edit this crap, right?
Battered contact syndrome.
Yeah. Um, yeah.
Three. You go ahead.
Yeah,
Newton.
so agencies are like, well, we're looking at your business from this perspective, and from this perspective, it's doing great. But without getting any input from the other parts of the business, your definition of great almost certainly does not match up with their definition of great.
Well, and you're training bad behavior because check this out. Okay, well, I'm going to fast forward through the year. Tim, look at our return on ad spend. Tim, look at our return on ad spend. Tim, look at our return on ad spend. Hey, Tim, I think we should invest in brand.
What?
To
Why?
which you reply, what's the return going to be?
Yeah.
We're telegraphing that what we do is
Yes.
immediately measurable and should be measured by our return on spend. So these longer term like a like people need to know who you are, but there's not that short term hit, and so that's what I see a lot is
Yeah.
like, why did
Absolutely.
the executive ask that question? Well, look at how you've been training the executive to ask questions.
Right. And moreover, I think the by the English major word there, moreover, multiple syllables, transitional, very good. Um, Moreover, the issue is you are first of all like you are actually investing into a fallacy that your return on ad spend is real. Number two is you're only looking at their business from this teeny tiny perspective. And here's something that almost no performance marketer wants to really understand is that there is nothing that drives performance more than brand. You know, the brands, the companies that have the best performance have the best brands. Like brand is this big brand is the secret to having fantastic tactical performance.
Yeah, if you ask Red Bull drinkers why they drink Red Bull, they're going to tell you because it gives them wings.
Right.
There's no other reason to drink that poison. It doesn't
No.
make you drunk.
And it's gross.
Right. So there you go, brand.
Yeah, exactly.
uh um
All
I'd
right.
be
So
remiss
so
if
so
I'd be
so
remiss if I didn't ask you what you do.
so I help
I usually
agencies.
start with that.
Yeah. Again, editing. We can put this in the front. It'll be cool.
I don't edit anything.
Oh,
I
thank
never
God.
edit. We got one take to get this right, Tim.
Oh, we're screwed. We're totally screwed.
We can do it again,
Um,
but
yeah. So
but
so
I,
actually, I help agencies suck less.
mm. And in what particular areas of suckiness do you focus?
Um, so let me tell you, like, what agencies want to buy. They want to buy scale and growth and more profits and all. And you know passive income. Like that's what most people want. Um,
Mm.
but what I really help them do is understand that what I really help agency owners do is understand that their job is to run the organization, not do the stuff that the organization does. And so they have to learn to decouple themselves from process, from sales, from managing clients. They have to focus on building great teams and empowering their teams and creating really great opportunities for their teams to grow and be autonomous so that their teams, who are really good marketers, can do better work. And so, what I in like the thing that I really do is I help turn founders into CEOs.
Yeah. The biggest chat there's a what I hope people don't hear is get out of service and don't empower the people to follow in your footsteps. Here's what I see happen. The founder goes, "Oh, the results are great because a founder that is also involved in service is having these business conversations, right? They are the translator. When they leave service, the people that they leave in charge of service don't have that business acumen. They don't have that business
They don't
experience.
have the
So they
content.
go, yeah, they don't have, right. So they go, "Oh, my job is to deliver things." And we don't see signals of churn. We don't engineer a process to get a seat at the table, and we don't invest in training our people outside of like Martech's 65th certification. Like no one is
Yeah, right.
investing in their in developing their business acumen, their
They're,
language.
right.
Go interview a CFO. Why would we do that? I don't know. So we could talk revenue and P&Ls. Like,
Yeah, right. And most agency owners will tell you, like, my team can't do that.
yeah, how many people on your
Well,
services
well,
team can
first of
read a
all,
P&L?
so if
Why do they
so
need
if
that?
so if your team can't do that, you have not done a really good job in hiring a team that has that capability.
Or look,
Or you have
or
not
filling
invested
that
your
skills gap, or
yeah, you
filling
have
it.
not invested
Right?
your time into creating people who can do that.
Mentorship, training, I'll show you how to do it. There's none of that. And that's the biggest experience gap that I'm seeing that permeates throughout the whole services org. Because
Right.
salespeople live and die by doing
Uh,
deals. Like
by outcomes.
they will seek out that skill set on their own. I've found.
Yes, because they're money grubbing capitalists and they that's the way that
They're
they
hunters. They
yeah,
either kill
exactly.
shit or they die.
Right.
That's okay. But
But
the service team is like, we're farmers, and they come back every month going, we have lost some of our crop, and it's like, have you planted any new seeds? They're like, no, that's not our
but
job.
no,
It's
because
sales
that's
job.
not in my SOP.
Yeah, yeah, but right. I
Right.
harvest
My
the corn.
SOP
Yeah.
says my SOP says I generate this report, make these adjustments, tell the client this, and everything should be fine. And it's never fine.
My favorite question for clients when I interview them is, what is the least valuable thing that we do for you? It's my
That's a
favorite.
great question. Um, so I worked at a what is now a very large agency, one of the largest, the largest and maybe the largest independent agency. I don't know. That's what they say. Um,
They probably have the best people.
they do have terrific people. They really do.
No, but
Um,
like, do they also say on their website, we have the best people?
probably, and yeah, I haven't looked at their website in a really long time because I
Okay,
have no.
I digress.
But
Go on.
but but and I'm sure actually would they probably also say that they're an extension of your team.
Yes,
You know,
strategic
all that.
partners.
Yes, all that sort of stuff. Um, but when I was working with them, I was in charge of putting together like a new analytics and reporting approach for them. And the least valuable thing that they were doing is they were generating reports, um, uh, performance reports from this particular software that they used. When I interviewed clients, exactly 0 clients actually ever looked at that report because they tracked their results differently. So the agency team was spending all of this time creating these magical reports from this software that was very difficult to wield.
Copy
0
and paste.
clients used it,
Copy
right?
and paste. Yeah.
Yeah, and it never occurred to the agency to ask, are these reports helpful? Like, do you use them? How do you actually use the data that we give you? And when I
They
asked
use
those
the gap.
questions, they said, we don't. We look at Google Analytics.
The, there's the gap between what an agency delivers and what the clients use.
Yeah.
Man, I basically I have that intuition now. I know that is the fact every time I look at the reports like that an agency is
Yeah.
delivering. I know it.
Yeah. Because, and also like the really only important things about agency reports are this is what we learned and this is what we're doing next. What happened before, who cares? That is the past. Reporting on the past is not a super awesome, it's not a really valuable thing.
Well, what it is it at least tells you that the client will be firing you soon.
Right. Well,
Because
actually,
the only reason they ask for let me see what you've done in the past is so they can find something that you
yeah,
didn't do and make that the reason to cancel the contract. You're on double
exactly.
secret probation. You just think that they
Right.
like want to see reports.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, so what I help people do, honestly, is I help them understand that their clients are working from a different playbook and that they need to shape their organization so that it helps the client rather than relying on the volume of deliverables, right? Because that's what many agencies do. We are going to give you 87 creatives this month. We're going to give you 416 reports. We're going to give you whatever other thing that we can think. And by this volume of stuff that we do for you, we're going to be protecting our revenue that comes from you.
Yeah.
But that's rarely the case.
Yeah. If if your entire services agreement, if the value of that could be one upped by a single qualified referral, you're in trouble. Be like, okay, client. Okay, here's a pitch, right? Instead of doing all this work for you, what if I just give you one qualified referral? They're like, yeah. We'd much rather that. you know. So that there's a fun game of would you rather there for like
Yeah, right.
so there's probably like a client agency drinking game that you could make that's actually like how like in Japan that the whole company goes out to like a bar and
Yeah,
it's the one time when the employees can actually like say how they feel and it's like it's an
sure.
important part of their culture.
Yeah.
I think there's an equivalent of that for agency client relationships.
You know what? Actually, it probably instead of a drinking game, it probably should actually be a game of dodgeball.
Well, physical aggression
Yeah,
is also a key. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
So
but I think Would You Rather is a fun game. Like list all the things you'd rather have instead of all the things we're giving you for $20,000 a month. Like, you know what I mean? Like
right,
I
we
think that's
would pay you
important.
more if you gave us less stuff.
Yeah, well, that's always the answer to what is the least valuable thing that we're
Yeah, and
doing?
that's a
It's
great
like,
question. I've often asked the question, what's the thing that you get from us that you did not expect, or that we didn't sell to you? And I find that to be a good question. But what's the least valuable thing we give to you? That is a better question.
yeah. Have you ever gotten something from us that you just wish you hadn't? You just like you wish you never even knew about.
Yeah.
Like it just
Yeah, that
oh
SEO
boy.
audit, right? That free audit that you gave us. That was
Yeah, like could we just not and say we did, you know?
yeah,
That was just a bag of worms that I don't ever want to think about. I feel that way about every website project I've ever been in second degree contact with. Even second degree contact with a website project is terrible.
yeah.
Anyway, so here's the thing. We got to do this again. I think you're like in my area. Yeah,
Yes,
you're like a 40-minute drive
yeah,
thing kind of.
right.
So there to be continued world. I know you're feeling the same. For those of you binging on Beers with Max, be patient. You know, the drinking game will be out at some point for agencies and clients, and we'll call it sobering results.
Oh,
Uh, ooh,
that,
that's a good book title.
right, and that was satire.
Satire with Tim. For those of you binging on Beers with Max, don't operate any heavy machinery. Tip your waitress, and I will see you next time.